I'd also say a lot of folks aren't super educated around, the power of PR and what it actually can do for your business. So a lot of times they aren't understanding when's the right time to bring an agency on or bring a consultant on, rather, to help to support their brand. And so they might be, concerned more with their social media, or they might say, I don't have the resources to hire a publicist. So I'm going to push towards my inventory. So I would say a lot of the unique challenges we face are only an extension of the systemic barriers that we are in touch with on our day-to-day lives. And so I wouldn't say it's actually them being a Black-owned business that faces a challenge for the media, because, as we have seen, there's tons of coverage of Black-owned businesses. It's more about, are they prepared for market? Are they prepared for the platform? Because a lot of the things that get your brand in order are expenses that can be costly for a Black-owned business that is, just getting started themselves.
You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Hello, and welcome back to the Black to Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. So what I've realized about most successful brands is that they have an amazing and compelling story. And this is what has helped them build a strong brand presence. Now, in addition to this, I'm sure media coverage has also helped. Now, I want to be clear here and say that this success is not only reserved for large businesses, but you too, a small business owner and entrepreneur, can reach your definition of success with the right strategy. So today we're going to show you exactly how you can leverage your thought leadership to effectively pitch to media and grow your brand presence. Joining me to provide you with these insights and tips is Tequilla White, the founder of TWPR, which is a full-service communications consultancy that specializes in amplifying the stories of purpose-driven brands. Her client roster includes brands you may have heard of like Mem Connect, CultureCon, T1 Entertainment and Sports, Yo Soy Afro Latina, ABF Creative, and Verizon Foundation, just to name a few. She has secured coverage for her clients in top-tier publications including Good Morning America, Refinery 29, Ad Age, Ad Week, Elle, and BuzzFeed, resulting in over 100 million media impressions across campaigns. Wow, and just the right person for today's conversation. So during this episode, you're going to learn the role of a publicist or PR agency and how to know when it's the right time to get media coverage. We're also going to talk about outsourcing it versus doing it yourself and some of the common mistakes that businesses make when they're pitching. Tequila is also going to share with you how businesses can use PR to drive brand visibility. So let's dive in. Tequila, thank you so much for being on the Black to Business Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. So before we dive into today's conversation, I love to give my audience a background about who we're speaking with. So if you could just share a little bit about who you are, what is it that you do in your business, and kind of how you got where you are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So hello, my name is Tequilla White. I am a publicist and brand manager. I run my own shop, a full service PR consultancy by the name of TWPR. And there I work with clients across industries, primarily in what we would call social impact work or corporate social responsibilities. So that just means purpose-driven campaigns. So anything that provides access or resources for communities that I care about, those that are underserved. And I work with them to secure them media placements, help to secure them speaking opportunities, submit them for awards, just manage their reputation and the visibility of their brand.
Oh, I love that. Manage their reputation. I love that. Yes. So also in your bio, it says that you were a born storyteller with a gift for writing and passion for social impact, as you just mentioned. Like, how did you hone in on your skill?
Yeah, I think that to become a better writer, you should probably read more. And so I was really a voracious reader when I was younger. Just being an only child and not really having a lot of interaction with kids my age, I was able to kind of explore, adventure, and just see life outside of my own through reading. And I think that helps me to be a stronger writer and figure out how to communicate effectively, how to communicate creatively and tell stories, because that's just the nature of, how we're raised. We're raised around, our family members telling stories around like things that they have experienced, and just seeing the elements of how they tell that story to engage people and pull them in. So just being around that my whole life, I think just made me a really strong storyteller.
Love it. And now, how did it all get started with like going into PR? How did you get into that industry?
Yes. So I was actually an anthropology major in college, and I wanted
Wow.
to study people and their backgrounds, and just like, how cultures that seem to be really outside, different. Once you examine them a little bit more, you start to realize they have a lot of similarities and there's a lot of things that overlap. So that really interests me. But then I realized I would have to teach or travel the world observing folks. And that wasn't really something that I wanted to do in terms of the quality of life that I wanted to have. And so I looked in terms of how I could shift my interests in these cultures and in these backgrounds and in storytelling, all the things that I was already really good at and interested in, and, parlay that into something else in terms of a career. And so I started to take some marketing classes in terms of electives and just kind of get a feel for what it could be like. And when I landed on my PR course, it really, really tapped in with all the things that I love to do. And so I continued to take those classes. I swapped over my major to be a double major in both anthropology and media studies. And so from there, I just hit the ground running with my internships. I completed 4 by the time that I had graduated with my degree. And so entering into the industry, I definitely had trouble finding the right role for me, whether it was, culture fit or the salary that they were offering. Like, it just didn't feel right. And so I decided to, shift and do my own thing and maybe come back at a later time when I had some more experience under my belt, because I thought, that would put me in a better position. And so I just ended up never doing that. And it just became, it just took off, and I was able to work on really fun projects that were really fulfilling to me and work with a lot of those brands that I wanted to partner with in the very beginning. It just, took a different route than I had anticipated, but that was kind of how it all got started.
I love it. And you have worked with some amazing clients, and I've seen the impacts and the decisions that you have made and have gotten people like deals and things like that. So we're going to dive into that. But before we do, I always like to give my audience a basics of understanding what we're talking about. So today's about Life's a Pitch, and understanding PR, I think, is a great place to start. So what's the role of a publicist or a PR agency? Like, what do they do?
Yes.
What do you do?
We manage your brand. And so that means that the way that you show up in the world, we are managing how that is coming across. So that's everything down to creative direction on your brand shoots, to understand how you should come across, incorporating brand colors, or, if you are a writer, or if you are perhaps a yoga instructor, or you are, depending upon what your skill set is and what your brand or your business is, crafting what that story should look like for you. So pitching on your behalf for media interviews, pitching on your behalf for perhaps speaking opportunities where you can join a conversation and establish yourself as an expert in your field, brokering partnerships perhaps for you so that you can perhaps be brand ambassadors for organizations that speak to your expertise, even down to just figuring out personal awards, individual awards, brand awards, managing how you show up in the world, what your reputation looks like, what that visibility looks like, and how to really garner that visibility to establish you as an expert. And that can, drive sales if that's what it needs to be. That can, provide you opportunities to perhaps teach if that's something you want to do, or grow in your field. So really figuring out how to get you in front of folks, get you on stages that make sense for you, developing what that brand should look like. And it's really just about understanding overall what the story should be and how we should communicate it depending upon the audience, the platform. So it's a lot of stuff that encompasses a lot of different tools and strategies and tactics. And some folks specialize in different areas. But overall, it's about managing that brand and communicating it effectively to your stakeholders, whomever that may be.
Love it. And now, what would you say PR, a publicist, or is not? Because I also recently seen one of your posts where you, I can imagine, mentioned that sometimes people want those instant results, and sometimes it seems like it could be a thankless job. But what would you say it's not, so people understand?
Yes. So public relations is earned media, and earned media basically is what it sounds like. I've earned the opportunity via my pitch. So it's not something that was paid for, which means that it's not something that's guaranteed. And so when you're thinking about how to market your business, you should be thinking about different levers you can pull. So earned media would be a publicist, a brand manager. You will also look into paid advertising opportunities where you have more control over your brand. You can, parse out what audience you want to focus on. You can be a lot more targeted. And then there's something called owned media, which is your owned platform. So you would say Instagram or LinkedIn, where you're able to speak directly to your audience. So there's tons of different ways to market the business, but PR is earned, which means it takes a lot longer to develop relationships. However, the impact is more longstanding because you've earned that coverage. And so you've developed credibility or trust, as opposed to, you see an ad and you kind of know that it's an ad and it feels salesy. Which is still great and something that you need in your business. But I like to tell people that PR is really about managing your brand, managing how you show up. And it's about sustainability throughout your brand, as opposed to something more transactional or an immediate result.
Great. And Tequila, when would you say a brand or entrepreneur should look to get media coverage? Is it a matter of the size of their business? Would you say it matters? Or when is the great time to start to get that look for media coverage?
Yeah, I think once you've done some of that foundational work in the business, so we're talking about, do we have bios for the founders perhaps? Do we have high-res images of the product or of the, leadership? Do we have a working website that's functional and folks are able to get to you? If you have a product, do you have inventory for that product? Because if we get you media coverage, are you going to be able to fulfill those orders? Understanding how your brand should come across, so being super clear on who your audience is, because all of those things are going to help support your publicist or your brand manager in developing the strategy that will encompass the targets that we're going out to for media. So once you have done that foundational work and you're what we would say media ready, then I think it's a good time to go after the media. It could be, to further establish yourself and gain more credibility in your space. It could be because you're perhaps having a launch and you want to garner some publicity around that. So I think it's a matter of, one, having that foundational work, and then also having news to share, because, you're not always going to have something that someone would deem to be newsworthy. However, when you work with a publicist, we can work to figure out how to create news for you. So as we learn more about your business, we can help you to craft angles around, perhaps things that are time sensitive, or perhaps, holidays, national cultural moments. So I think a good time is, one, when you've completed that foundational work, to have the correct assets to share. And then also when you have a story to tell or news to share is a great time to look into getting media coverage.
Perfect. And it is said that PR is expensive. Can you demystify that and talk about maybe when it's a good time to outsource versus possibly doing it yourself?
Yes, I think that it is a matter of the health of your business and understanding what expenses you can take on. When we're talking about the right time, we have to understand that publicity is a luxury. It's not something, that is life or death for your business. There's some folks who just focus on ads and they're very successful. But when you have specific needs around how you're looking to grow your business or establish yourself as a leader in the space, a number of those things, that is where publicity comes into play, because you want to establish trust. And so when you're talking about whether, it's expensive in thinking about placing an ad in a media publication. You're looking at upwards of 6 figures to place an ad in a magazine, whether that be print or digital, in a top tier publication. However, if you have earned media in that publication, of course, that is something you're not paying for. So you're getting the cost of that ad for no cost, or the cost of what you're paying on retainer for your publicist. So I would say that would be a pretty good trade-off.
Absolutely. All right, now let's dive into the power of the pitch. So what are some of the common mistakes that you see business owners or brands make when it comes to pitching media, and how can they avoid those mistakes?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the conversation around having a story to tell and doing that foundational work. So a lot of the times folks are pitching, with misspellings, or, they don't have updated social media handles, or their website links aren't working. And those are all things that are outside of the actual pitch. Those are just things foundationally as a brand that you should have prepared before you are reaching out to any brand or any media outlet, because those are going to be those supporting materials that are going to help to tell the story, because you can only tell, so much in an email pitch. So if you have your assets prepared and ready and, high quality and ready to be used, that does a lot of the work for you in terms of telling the story. I also see a lot of folks not having clarity around what their story is and how they like it to be told. So they're not clear on, what value do I add? How do I make an impact on a global level, on a national level, on a local level? What is my expertise? What is my unique POV? That isn't established. And so when you're pitching a media outlet who might be getting 100 pitches a day, that takes the chances of that pitch going through and makes it a lot lower, because you don't have clarity around, what your unique value add is and how that's going to serve the readers or serve the platform. And that's definitely a non-starter in terms of what the media is looking for.
Okay, so you've helped your clients secure top tier media placements in outlets like Good Morning America, Forbes, Business Insider. How did you get them in this major publication, and what was it, and how did you kind of prepare and position them?
Yes, I would say it's definitely a matter of the pitch. So they all had newsworthy stories. They all had really strong stories. They had done that foundational work. So I had the materials to work with, whether it were multimedia assets, linking to videos, sharing images, being really clear on who they serve and how they serve them, what that audience is. So I would say I was able to position them and get them that opportunity, half because they were prepared and I had trained them in terms of how they speak to media, what those key messages should be, all that good stuff. And then in terms of, positioning them, it really was a matter of doing my research on the outlet, on the producer, on the writer, understanding what drives them, what topics they really cover, and how they like to position, the folks that they interview. So really being super duper keen to how I research, and kind of taking my time and knowing when the time was right. So understanding like, hey, maybe about a month out, if we're planning for a launch, we want to get this in front of folks so that we can start to build out something and ladder up to it. And in terms of preparing them for interviews, there's always a media training ahead of time where we're running through the questions. We're kind of doing a mock interview style, and I'm discussing things like body language and, how you come across with your posture, things like that most people don't really think about, but are directly connected in terms of how you communicate and how you establish credibility and trust. Because when people see how you come across via an interview, they build trust with you, and that has a direct connection in terms of how businesses are able to grow, because people purchase from businesses that they trust.
Absolutely. And can you touch on some of the benefits of getting featured in like major publications? And in your experience, how has this impacted your clients' businesses?
Yes, it's absolutely great. One, for visibility, because of course, the larger the platform, the more eyeballs we have and the more opportunity we have to, share the brand with new folks. So get new customers, new supporters. That's always great. It's always great for reestablishing a relationship with current consumers, because they're seeing like, hey, a brand that I support is on GMA, is on Today Show, is featured in Essence, is featured in Ebony, the like. So that, further builds credibility and makes folks want to continue to support you. And I have absolutely seen it drive sales for a lot of my clients who have a product, whether it's them being a part of a listicle, which is basically a roundup of, the top X, Y, and Z brands to support, so that maybe there are folks who are new to the brand that can come in contact with that. I've also seen it work in other ways where clients are establishing themselves as an authority, and it has led to them securing speaking engagements or, getting awards based upon the coverage that they have, because it's sharing how they're an expert in their field, further establishing, that credibility. So I've seen it definitely work to help, support businesses grow if they're more product based, and then also have seen opportunities grow for folks that I'm working more on their personal branding to help establish them as leaders in their spaces.
Got it. Wonderful. And of course, this is the Black to Business podcast, and our audience is Black entrepreneurs. So what unique challenges do you see Black-owned businesses and brands face when trying to secure media coverage, and how can they overcome these obstacles?
Absolutely. It's definitely tons of barriers to entry, definitely for myself as a Black woman in PR. So that's already going to be tough. But as a Black woman in PR pitching other Black owned businesses, I would say, there's tons of resources that we don't have access to. So it's easy to say, let's do the foundational work of, having high res brand images and, great websites and social media accounts that are up to date. But those also are expenses. And those are also, other pieces of the business that need to be accounted for. So now we're talking about social media strategists. We're talking about, folks that work in paid advertising. We're talking about website development and designers. We're talking about photography. So all of those things are expensive. And so when we don't have the access to those resources, it hurts us in terms of how we're able to position the brand. I'd also say a lot of folks aren't super educated around, the power of PR and what it actually can do for your business. So a lot of times they aren't understanding when's the right time to bring an agency on, or bring a consultant on, rather, to help to support their brand. And so they might be, concerned more with their social media, or they might say, I don't have the resources to hire a publicist. So I'm going to push towards my inventory. So I would say a lot of the unique challenges we face are only an extension of the systemic barriers that we are in touch with on our day-to-day lives. And so I wouldn't say it's actually them being a Black-owned business that faces a challenge for the media, because, as we have seen, there's tons of coverage of Black-owned businesses. It's more about, are they prepared for market? Are they prepared for the platform? Because a lot of the things that get your brand in order are expenses that can be costly for a Black-owned business that is, just getting started themselves.
Love that. Thank you for that insight. And people who are listening are maybe a small team, maybe a one-person team. So what would you say are some tips for best practices that they can start small and that they could be doing to kind of start to ramp up for that media coverage? What can they do now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I talk about this rather extensively in my Life's a Pitch course, which is a 6-week accelerator in which I focus on small business owners and also PR professionals who are in their really early years, to help them to develop strategy around how to pitch effectively. And so what I tell them a lot of the times is, don't worry so much about the Forbes, the Vogues, the top tier publications first. Start to establish, what media publications are going to drive immediate results for you. So if you are a product-based business, look up your competitors and see where they are being featured. Be really targeted and strategic in terms of how you're going after them. When it comes to, crafting a pitch, keep it very simple. So, if you want to hyperlink out to your website, hyperlink out to examples, you want to be super concise and clear with what your CTA is at the end of that pitch. So if it's to be featured or interviewed or highlighted in any way, you want to have clarity around that. And you want to be clear on what your value add is, because a lot of the times it's more of, just sharing what your business does, and less about why that is important for the outlet to share. So what takeaways will the reader or the viewer get from your business being highlighted? Will they be put on to, a new product that they should incorporate into their lifestyle? Will they be provided with access or a resource that they haven't before? Really identifying how you add value to the marketplace is one of the very first things they should do. And I would say, lastly, in terms of figuring out who to send your pitches to, doing the work of researching those publications and the writers themselves, developing those relationships. So even if you do a small group of 10, but you are really intentional about, paying attention to how they write and reaching out to them and connecting with them, will go a long way, because as your business continues to grow and they continue to grow in their careers, that brokers are partnerships in which you might be able to, in fact, get coverage in a more top tier publication, because you've done the work to foster that relationship early on in both of you all's businesses or careers.
Got it. And speaking of adding value, I want to talk about the importance of thought leadership in all of this. So what does it mean to be a thought leader?
It means you have a unique POV on your industry. You have something unique to say that other folks aren't saying. You are approaching the industry in a way that's forward thinking. You're forecasting trends. You're understanding how, your industry fits into the larger ecosystem of the world. You're really just adding a unique perspective to a conversation. And that is what it means to truly be a thought leader.
Got it. And so how can entrepreneurs who are listening start to position, because this is something they may have been thinking about, but not sure how to do. So how can they start to position themselves as that thought leader in their industry? Some of the must-haves and must-dos that they have to do.
Yeah, I would say it'll be a combination of this earned media that I was talking about earlier and the owned media. So on the earned side, working to position yourself in the media as a leader in your space. So if there's a trend or something timely that you can comment on as an expert, you want to reach out to these folks and say, hey, I know, maybe the Oscars is coming up and I am, a producer or a director. I would love to give my unique POV on the industry and maybe the lack thereof of diversity across the commercials this year. It's something that is really direct. It's something that's timely. It's something that you can establish your unique POV on the industry and start to develop a unique voice, so that when they are covering this topic in the future, they know they can go to you because you'll give a really high quality quote that is supported by years of experience and expertise in this area. So you want to understand that, it might not always be a standalone profile on you, but you do want to start to ramp up in terms of value of how you're contributing to these conversations. You want to be timely, you want to be quick, you want to be reactive, but you also want to be proactive. So as you're observing the industry and seeing how things are trending one way or another, you want to get ahead of that and say, hey, I'm seeing folks, maybe go away from a TikTok and closer to a LinkedIn. What does that mean? How are audiences being impacted? If you are perhaps an expert in marketing or advertising, how is that being reflected in terms of the campaigns that you're seeing? So really being a student of the industry and doing that work on the earned side is important. And then when it comes to your own channels, then that means you're hopping on Twitter and you're sharing your POV on the industry in quick thoughts. Or you are maybe, writing a longer form piece of content on LinkedIn about the industry that includes some examples, perhaps the case studies that you have done to tie it back together. So you're being really mindful around the platforms that you're on and how you're showing not only how you have something unique to say, but that you're actually qualified to have an opinion on this, because it's not enough to have a POV. It has to be supported by your expertise in the industry to make sure that you are once again establishing that credibility.
So good. And that makes me think about, so when you say things are timely, so for example, one of the things you mentioned are things around culture. So for example, Black History Month, we have Black business owners who are listening. When do publications typically like to have those submissions, or say if someone is pitching themselves before the actual month or time?
Yes. So my rule of thumb is always a quarter before. And so if it's something that is perhaps in a print magazine, I try to go even further back than that, maybe about 5 months. So I would normally start to send out those Black History Month pitches in the summertime, just to get people primed and on the radar. Now, if it's something that's more digitally focused that has a quicker turnaround, I could do around like 2 to 1 months, but you're supposed to really forecast a lot of, what is coming up. So if you're a business that perhaps targets Black women, you want to have holidays like a Mother's Day up. You want to start thinking about things that relate to your consumer and how you can hop into those conversations. So I would say rule of thumb is to always be at least 3 months ahead of anything that is super timely. And the good thing is a lot of these things are annual. So all of these award shows happen around the same time every year. And of course, these holidays are annual as well, and these cultural moments. So you can really start to build a calendar for yourself of what are the moments that most relate to my product or service, and how do I want to show up and speak to that cultural moment or that timely occasion.
Got it. And Tequila, one of the things you also mentioned earlier is how some people do not see the value in investing in PR. And I want to dial that back into having a return on your investment. So how can business owners use what we discussed, thought leadership and media coverage, to drive these sales and increase their revenue growth? And what are some of the key metrics to track this?
Yes, I would say first things first is PR is not going to be a direct driver for sales. It's going to be something that impacts your brand visibility and credibility, which then fosters trust with your consumers and then drive sales. So I want to be clear on that, because a lot of people think it's a direct correlation, and that is not how you should be measuring your PR partner. What you should be doing is worrying more so on the impact that it's making on your brand relationships. And so I will be working on, fostering partnerships maybe with larger brands that might have brand campaigns throughout the year. And that might be a brand that particularly could support an event in terms of sponsorship. So helping to develop relationships that can, spring off multiple different streams of income, of revenue, of opportunity. That is more brand management. And so how we are measured, our performance would be the quality of our impact of placements and of our impact of relationship development. So looking at a quarter and saying, maybe we had 4 media placements, however, they were in, maybe trade outlets that are really important for your industry, or maybe it was in a Forbes where we have more visibility and you're establishing yourself as a thought leadership. And maybe it's, an Essence where we're able to speak directly to your consumer, or maybe it's a Black to Business podcast where your audience are Black entrepreneurs. So this would be a great platform for you to be on. So really understanding the impact that it has on your business and how that is driving credibility and visibility for your brand over sales is really important, because a lot of times the PR manager is working alongside, your social strategist, alongside your paid ad representative, and we're all working together to pull different levers of marketing to, in fact, drive sales. But that's not always an indication of the success of a PR campaign. And sometimes there are other aspects and markers to keep in mind.
Got it. And speaking of social, let's talk about growing brand presence. So what role does social media and other digital channels play into effective media pitching and thought leadership?
Oh, it is absolutely critical. And, I think that PR and social working together is really best practice in terms of how we're communicating messaging. So if I am working on a shoot for a client, a brand shoot for a client, I'm working with a social strategist to figure out how we can use those images to tell a story visually. If I'm working on an event with a client and I'm building out programming, or I'm building out, talent to participate, I'm working with a social strategist to figure out how we get them assets to further amplify their presence. If I'm, helping to secure a press placement for a client, I'm working with the social strategist to further amplify that placement, to say, hey, we were just featured in X, Y, and Z publication. Here's the link to support us. Because that's going to, of course, drive people to the piece, which should have a link out to their service or their product, which of course drives visibility, which then drives sales. So it's really just a chain of events. And that's best practice when PR and social can talk to each other, and social can say, hey, we've been getting a lot of these questions or comments. Maybe this is something that you should be highlighting in the press because a lot of people are bringing this up. So really understanding how 360 full circle communications works effectively across the business is really going to be the best case scenario for driving growth in your business.
Got it. And you kind of touched on this earlier, the power of storytelling, but I want to dive into it just a little bit. How can Black business owners use their personal stories and experiences to build their brand and thought leadership in a way that resonates with their audience?
Yes, I think that the why is the most important thing. And that is what I'm always driving with my clients. I want to talk to you about how you got to this point, because that's going to be the connector. That's going to be the thing that jumps through and gets people to really connect with you. And like I said, people purchase things or support businesses from people that they feel they can relate to, people they feel like they can trust or they see themselves in. So a lot of the people that we really support, they might not have the highest quality of business, and that might be the reality, but we like them. We trust them. And so I always am trying to figure out what is going to be that personal connection that we can pull out that connects to why you started this business, why you were driven to create this platform, because the purpose is really going to be what is going to set you apart from your competitors in the space, because everyone is selling hamburgers. Everybody is selling lashes. Everybody is doing the same things. So what is going to make you be the brand or the person, the expert that I'm going to trust, that I'm going to go with, is going to be that personal story. It's going to be the power of the storytelling to tie your purpose together with your impact. And so I'm always going to make sure that clients are leveraging their life experience to show how that has driven them to create their platform. So it's absolutely critical to employ it. And it's definitely something that continues to be successful for me when I'm pitching clients.
I love that. This has been so great and so insightful. I've learned a lot on this conversation. Yeah, you broke it down for us. I love it. And I want to talk about now the things that you are doing and how is TWPR helping business owners create effective pitches. And just talk about some of the services that you offer in one of the programs you also mentioned as well.
Yes. So in terms of capabilities of the business, we are working with clients to support them across plenty of different activities. So that can look like helping to support them with an event that is a further extension of the brand, and building out what that programming looks like, building out, what talent we should have to support the brand, working with our social team to figure out how we should market it digitally, how to get folks really engaged if there is a virtual element, perhaps. It's also working to establish them in their space as leaders, whether that be on a stage at a national conference, whether it be at a trade conference, whether it be helping them to craft the HBCU college tour where they're tapping back in to that community and pouring back into them. It could be, helping to support crafting op-eds or opinion pieces for them where they're fully able to establish their unique POV. So supporting and drafting that for them, supporting them in terms of maybe an award for them individually or on behalf of the brand, everything down to managing their visibility for media relations. So whether that's a podcast interview, whether it's national news like a GMA or a Today Show, whether it's more trade focus on their industry. So really helping to craft what the messaging looks like, how they're coming across any platform, and really doing that storytelling that I love to do. I think that further expanding the business past media relations and really looking into other levers that I can pull across marketing channels has been really exciting, because I'm able to figure out, if there's a brand partnership, is there an experiential element that I can, add in and amplify? So really being expansive in terms of how I'm storytelling has been really fun. And then in terms of how I'm looking to support perhaps business owners who are in the early stages of their business, who might not be quite ready to bring on, an agency or a consultant via a retainer, I have Life's a Pitch, which is a 6 course accelerator in which we walk through everything from how to craft a pitch, how to build out a media list of contacts, how to prepare your brand. So, doing that foundational work. And it's really taking them step by step in terms of how they can effectively pitch media and, start to get some coverage for their brands. And I think that that is a great way for me to fill in the gap in terms of the folks who might be more prepared to dig a little bit deeper. And then the ones who, they're still finding their way, but they understand the power of PR and the importance of incorporating it into their marketing strategies, but they just need a little bit of guidance on how to get started. So that's really important for me to, place a space in between that gap for folks who have those barriers to entry and don't have access to the resources or the knowledge that I have.
Love it. And can you share some of the benefits of maybe outsourcing this versus, I know you have the Life to Pitch, but doing it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can tell from the very long list of things that I run off that this is a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And it does take, a lot of expertise to do it effectively. And so, you want to be focused on building your business. You don't want to be focused on pitching and also running social and also taking the images of your product. You want to be able to fully focus on leading your business and leading your team. And so you really want to be able to tap into an expert to guide you and to support you in this piece of your business. So I'm always going to, let people know the importance of outsourcing and hiring a partner for this, while also still understanding that everybody is in different spaces and places. But best practice is definitely to outsource and work with a partner that you trust to be able to really craft what your strategy should be.
Love that. And can you think of any transformation stories, like, in your experience working in your business that have really stood out to you?
Yeah, I would say just looking at the growth of just how Black women entrepreneurs are continuing to be the highest number of folks starting businesses year after year, and just seeing, the plethora of national coverage for a brand like maybe a lip bar, or looking into brands like Black and Bold, which is a really awesome Black-owned coffee brand that is now in a Target, or, looking at how we really have been able to scale our businesses through that personal storytelling, through really understanding our impact on the world, has been really beautiful to watch, and seeing folks start to kind of pull back the curtain of what PR is and how it's really helping to drive the growth of a lot of our favorite cult classic brands.
Absolutely. Well, again, this has been amazing. Now I want to jump into a little round of not so serious business. So break it up a little bit. So, Tequila, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Charge more.
Ooh, I feel that. And if you could write a book, or if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write about?
I would probably write about how anthropology allowed for me to have a great foundation to be successful in my career, because a lot of the work that I'm doing is observing cultures and peoples and how they interact, and figuring out how to use that information to craft messaging or strategy to get them to support a brand or a founder.
Love that. And which TV show do you wish still aired, and why?
A few. So probably Hawthorne was the one I was really hurt that they got out of the way for Jada Pinkett. I wish that Pose had 17 more seasons, but I feel like they stopped when they were supposed to. And probably This Is Us, but I know that it had to end the way that it had to end. But those are like shows that I wish were still going, but I just keep watching them over and over again.
Yes, love that. And what advice would you give to someone in their first year of business?
I would say do the foundational work. So do the work that nobody sees. Don't create an Instagram account or, any external platforms until you have done that foundational work to understand your business, who you serve, how you want to come across in the world. and you have, perhaps gotten a business manager or someone to work on your finances. So worry first about the health of the business before you get into the marketing, because the marketing, once you have, smart folks to work, that will work itself. But if you don't have the work done on the foundational aspect, your business will not be able to be healthy and thrive.
That's such good advice. And do you have any favorite tools or resources that have really helped you in your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I would say day to day, I'm pretty much a G Suite, Google Drive person, the usual productivity tools of a Slack, of a Monday to keep me organized. And I would just say in general, it's less of a tool and more of a tribe. So I would say I really tap into my people. And they continue to fill me and be resources for me and be connectors for me and teach me things. So I would say that has definitely been the fuel for my journey, because it's been an entrepreneurial journey from the start. And so that is a very different space than folks who maybe have left a corporate space to go into an entrepreneurial journey. So having a tribe around me to keep me really fulfilled and focused through this time has been really, really critical for me.
That's beautiful. And speaking of tribe, finally, what does it mean to you to be Black in business?
It means understanding the assignment. It means understanding the impact that I have to make outside of myself, and understanding that I've been blessed to have these skills. And so understanding like what impact am I going to make on my local community, on my community at large, nationally, globally? How am I going to make the world better using what I'm naturally gifted to do? And so I think being Black in business is understanding outside of yourself what your business is really here to do and what it's here to serve and what it could be a vessel to be. And I think that I don't take that responsibility lightly. And I think that definitely comes through in all of my work. And I have a reputation for really giving of myself and putting my all into my work. And I'm proud of that.
Yes. Proud. And I can't thank you enough for today. You have really poured into us, my community. And I thank you so much for being here. And I know people who are listening are going to want to know, how can they stay connected with you? How can they find you and support you? So please do share.
Yes. So it is tequillawhitepr.com for the consultancy, where you can see all the capabilities of the business. It is tequilla.white on Instagram and Tequilla White PR on Instagram. And then also, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, I'm Tequilla White there as well, 2 L's.
Got it. Tequila, thank you again for being on the show. So proud of you and can't wait to see you continue to grow.
Thank you so much.
So many great tips and insights. And I love that Tequila shared how far in advance you should pitch a media publication. It's also great that she shared some things that you could be doing in the meantime if you aren't quite ready for media coverage just yet. You can check out more about how you can connect with Tequila and the resources that she mentioned by visiting blacktobusiness.com/141. Thank you so much for listening, and I will chat with you next week, same time, same place.